Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Early Music Podcast. My name is Darina Ablogina. The European Early Music Association, REMA, is currently going through a process to encourage transition for its members, more sustainability, inclusion, diversity, access for audiences, and artists. Early music today embraces a multitude of perspectives, breathing new life into age-old compositions while challenging the boundaries of what we once understood about this era. In this season, we will discuss how diversity, be it cultural, musical, or interpretive, has played a key role in shaping the evolution of early music. In today's episode, I invite you to join our conversation about diversity, inclusivity, equity, and accessibility, where we will discuss the actions of Early Music America and their transition process.
I'm Karin Cuéllar Rendón. I'm a Bolivian historical violinist and researcher and also social justice advocate. I currently live in Montreal, where I'm finishing my PhD in musicology at the University of McGill. And I also served at the board of Early Music America and serve as one of the co-chairs of the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity and Access Task Force. I am a minority in the United States and Canada and where I lived. I found myself being one of the few, or sometimes the only, Latino immigrant, and on top of that, woman in my environment. So then I found myself also making spaces for my own existence. This started with me joining Early Music America as an emerging artist, emerging professional council. That's the group, and then I joined the Idea Task Force. The Idea Task Force is a group that only was created in 2019. I've been able to put forward projects and initiatives that actually tackle on these issues and have the conversations with peers like me that are minoritized, that are racialized, and that we constitute, yes, the minority in our field. And so the issues of representation usually come as one of the first problems because there are so few of us, but our society is not. So we are not reflecting what our society really looks like in the stage. My work in this concert stage, my work as a musician, as a programmer, and as a scholar touches upon all of these issues in a way that, yes, I want to bring out diverse or elevate diverse voices in classical music, in the repertoire. I want to elevate the voices of diverse minorities in the concert stage. And I want to be able to create opportunities for people that don't have the same access, doesn't have the same resources, for our field to continue growing in its inclusion. So then the work that we do at EMA is, for example, trying to expand the work that we do into Latin America and creating opportunities for Latin American musicians.
Which kind of ideas do you have? And maybe you have a certain approach or solution to that, how we can expand our audiences, and not only in terms of geography, but also on different layers of the society.
Of course. And I think this is where I will use an American expression, put the money where your mouth is, which is allocation or reallocation of resources, of funding. So then, for example, if we want to diversify our audiences, we cannot expect them to come to our spaces. We cannot expect to come, them to pay the prohibitive prices of tickets, and that for immigrant families, for example, are really prohibited. So then we have to create initiatives that bring our music and our practice to their communities, to the spaces where they gather. I have a project in Montreal that precisely does this in many levels, brings free concerts of classical music and early music to underserved communities. We focus especially on immigrant communities from different places. And we bring it to them. If they gather in churches, we bring it to churches. If they gather in refugee centers, we go to the refugee centers. And we bring music that they feel a connection with, music in their language. We hire musicians that are coming from those communities. So then they see the representation. And my hope is that because of representation is a two-way road, that many members of these communities will see themselves in the stage, and hopefully children will think that, oh, I can't belong there. I can't belong in that stage. I can't belong in that community. So I think that diversifying our audiences requires a lot of proaction and funding and reallocating our resources.
I was also thinking about LGBTQI plus communities and how do you embrace their field and how do you connect also with early music? Is there a tool to connect?
There is a group in the United States called Chamber Queer, and they work precisely on bringing awareness of the needs of the queer community for them to feel safe and welcome in our field. We are working along them and along other members of the queer community in our IDEA task force to compile a set of recommendations for institutions that would allow members of the queer community to feel more welcome. For example, like writing gender inclusive concert dress protocols, or changing the places where people rehearse, so then there are gender inclusive bathrooms and etc. There are so many ways to do that, but I find that the best way to be aware and to be conscious of what this community needs is to engage people from those communities in our positions of leadership, to include more members of the queer community in our boards, in our administrations, and of course in our ensembles, and be able to create an atmosphere of trust with them. So then we can listen to their needs and be able to communicate and be able to be respectful of their needs. Some of the recommendations that, for example, the members of the IDEA Task Force have given is to be mindful of pronouns, for example, but also be mindful that some people may not feel safe to share their pronouns, especially in the US when there are states that are very openly anti-queer. I find that the best way to know about the needs of communities is engaging them in the conversation, giving them space to share their needs, creating those spaces for them to exist in our ensembles, in our administrations. It is a necessity to create an environment in which we listen to each other and create these relationships based on trust. So then we can also learn from each other.
You mentioned this list it was a guide, right? Could you tell more about this guide that will be published next summer?
This is called the Best Practices and Protocols Guide for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access in the Early Music Field. It's currently being written by members of the IDEA Task Force, and we have other mentors that are helping us also in this document. So then this document, what it's trying to do is to create like a ground level from which we can share this information. It has do's and don'ts in practices, has recommendations, has also examples of microaggressions that many members of our group have experienced. So then it comes from an honest and vulnerable place. And because of we believe that compassion and empathy need to exist in our practice, we wrote this document. It has sections on recommendation with land acknowledgements, with religious freedom, with BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and music, ethnicity and race, gender, and sexual orientation, and suggestions on how to avoid tokenism, exoticism, how to create concert dress protocols that are more inclusive, more accessible spaces for disabled peoples, etc. It has many topics that we are touching on, and so that other people that come after us maybe don't have to live through them, and they come into a field that is more aware of itself and more aware of how it can learn and move forward to make our field more inclusive, more diverse, more equitable, and more accessible.
How do you experience the context of our market? How would you describe interacting with our field on a professional level, just as a musician, as an artist?
I find that it is up to us, the artists, because at the end, we are the ones that are having the connection with the audience directly. We can have, the best intentions as a festival director, as a scholar, as a presenter, but it's really the artist, or it seems to be like the last step, right? The artist has this closer relationship with the audience. So then it is in our hands the responsibility to tell the stories that will shift the narrative in our field too. So then I find that because of that, we have a lot of power. I feel that I have a lot of power, also responsibility, but in my practice, I can also put forward these topics. I can also show diversity in my programming. I can hire musicians, that come from diverse backgrounds. Or, something that was touched upon today is that, sure, even within Western music, there is still so much more diversity that we haven't even, scrapped the surface yet. There's so many composers and practices and topics that are being relegated because of, what sells maybe in the market. It is the other way around. There's always this question, which one came first, right? The egg or the chicken. So is it that the audiences have a taste and we just cater to what they want to consume? Or do we, can shape that taste, presenting them new things? And I think the latter. I'm a camper of the latter, so that I will want to present programs that, one, educate people about histories maybe they are not aware of or not in touch with or far from.
Can be a problematic field because of texts of the past centuries, of libretto. Of course, humanity was existing in a different sort of reality, and it's a great field for us, artists, to develop our creativity towards that awareness.
Yeah, and to reimagine works. I mean, we don't have to present the magic flute with the same text, right? We can reimagine it, or, I don't want to say rewrite it. We won't. Music can be relevant to our society and what is happening. And we can do that with music. And there are so many ways we can present materials that are problematic, but in a way that are educational. Sometimes we exoticize genres and we tell stories of music from points of view that don't recognize all the actors in the music. But I find that the solution is not to not perform them. What I want to say is that I'm actually a big advocate of coming forward with, our colonial histories, presenting this music, but putting the music in the context and teaching the audience that this music was problematic. It was composed during a time where there was an imbalance of power, there was imposition, but we are going to perform it so then you can hear it, right? Not just presented it as face value, just for the sake of music.
Maybe people can be disturbed by this idea of rewriting texts because, it's historically informed performance practice, right? And we are supposed to stay as historical as possible.
I think that tension is necessary. True, maybe we don't have to rewrite it, but at least put it in context. I'm a big advocate of pre-concert lectures or maybe lecture recitals. Don't present just the music because it is beautiful, right? I mean, if it's problematic, mention what is problematic about it and then go on, perform it. But make sure that people are aware of that, because I think that is our responsibility. The audience won't know, and unless they are up to date to the latest scholarly research, then they won't know. So that's where when I refer to our power as artists, that's where it lies, and that's what I mean by it. That it is in our hands to give the full picture, and if people want to consume it as is, be it. But I'm also sure that there will be people that will want to consume it in maybe a reimagined way. So there's space for both coexistence in our field, I think.
There is space for diversity. I hope for that. Thank you very much. It was a great talk. Thank you for listening to our episode. Please find all the additional information in the description box. I wish you all the best. Bye.